Today. So the chapter finished today. Here are your terms: states' rights position, nationalist position, bureaucracy, and gerrymandering. What? Gerrymandering? What does this mean? Well, we'll find out. We will find out. Ooh. Charlotte, what's up? Yeah, Philip has. All right, let's get to it. So, state rights position says it in the name. So, politicians actually usually it's affiliated with political parties, but um, anyway, you just prefer that states have a little bit more power than the national government. That you think more power should belong to the states than the national government, which there's been a lot of debate over that for a long time, right? So uh, nowadays, typically you see the Republican Party being more for the states' rights position, just because they think that the state, local governments have more of an impact and should have more of an impact on your life than the national government. Now, let's face it, right? Your representatives that you vote for, that you elect within your state, your local elections, they know your life a little bit more than anybody else, right? Especially for someone from the national level that might not live in your community. So, yeah, you think that these policies here made at the local level, the state level, has more of an impact on you than the national, which, yeah, it does, right? That's plain, everybody, I mean, it's kind of plain and simple. All right, nationalist position. So the nationalist position believes that the national government should make primary all the decision for the people. That when it comes to policy making, when it comes to creating laws and guidelines, the national government should be the one dictating that, not the state and local governments. So, in other words, it's the debate between states' rights and the nationalist position. Would you rather have the national government telling you what to do, or the state governments, the local governments, right? Which one should have more power? Anyway, like I mentioned, typically the Democratic Party refers to the nationalist position, and then the states' rights position is more focused with the Republican Party. All right, bureaucracy. What do you have for bureaucracy? I think we ended off with this yesterday. We're going to pick up there and look into that. What is a bureaucracy? Katie, what do you got? Yeah, good. So these bureaucrats are people that are not elected, right? So these are positions held in the government where these people aren't elected into it. Typically, they're chosen by an elected official based off of their experience, based off their knowledge, their merit, right? And yeah, they're deserving of it, right? The problem though that people have is that, well, it's kind of hard to get them out of these positions. And they're creating policy, they're even dictating what goes on, but they weren't elected. Does that go against what democracy stands for? Yeah, it pretty much does. Does that make sense? Nora, you got that?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so with that, these bureaucracies, they get critiqued quite a bit. And I mean, rightfully so, I guess, right? But you gotta imagine, there are some bureaucrats that have earned their position, have done what they needed to do. It's not like they just give it out to any old person, right? They have experience, they have knowledge of what position they're taking within the government. And well, again, it causes a lot of debate. All right, gerrymandering. So this is like a weird thing that happens in politics where every 10 years, the census data results in the redistricting of certain districts within states. So voting tendencies, okay? So within districts, again, that gives a certain amount of number, right? Gives representation towards the state vote. Right? And that has a big impact in state and national elections. So in this case for gerrymandering, this is when a political party, when they're in power, that said 10 years, or maybe they have to redistrict because of court procedures. But typically every 10 years, this comes up in debate of how they're going to redistrict the state. And every single time, the political party in charge is going to skew it in order to get the most votes for their party. Right? In other words, it's kind of like legal cheating, right? Legalized cheating, right? And some of the designs of these districts just make no sense. The name actually came from a Massachusetts politician. His name was actually Gary, but for some reason, just because the name, they just call him Jerry. Anyway, they said, hey, this Massachusetts lobbyist, a politician here, redistrict Massachusetts in order to favor his political party, which was the Democratic Republican at the time. And guess what it looked like on the map when he redistricted this one area? A salamander. I know it sounds stupid and weird, but the nickname gerrymandering came from the combination of the politician's name and salamander, because the district looked like that after they redrew it out, so that his party would not lose the next election. Isn't that weird? Strange? Kind of seems illegal, but they've been doing it for so long that it's just one of those things. If your party's in charge at the time, great for you, right? And if not, well, darn. But maybe heck, and in the next turnaround, you might see your party actually take that and run with it. There's been a lot of calls to get rid of gerrymandering, but we'll see. There's also other means like filibustering. You guys ever hear what a filibuster means? All right, so a filibuster, I should have put that as a term. When it comes to political parties debating things on the Senate floor, in Congress, in order to try to hold up votes for certain policies or laws or decisions, you'll have one of these politicians just stand up and talk 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 in order to try to push people away from making their vote. Does that make sense? So in other words, you're holding things up in order to be in opposition of a certain policy or law that's being talked about, discussed in Congress. Right? People are saying get rid of the filibuster, but others are like, you know what? If you want to get up there and talk the whole time and try to put people to sleep or make them leave the chambers, then you can do it. It's one of those weird plays by politicians. Actually, just the other day, 2 days ago, Cory Booker,
Yeah,
25 hours.
yeah, I saw that. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, 25 hours.
I don't know how someone can do that.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know either. It's funny because he's in opposition to the filibuster. So he's like, I don't want this anymore, but he did it for 25 hours. He holds the record. So it's like, and there's nothing being voted on yet the other day. So it's like, why'd you do it? I guess to get the record. So some people are just confused by it, like, well, I mean, we want to give you an award, a medal for it, I guess, I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, 25 hours. I don't know how to do it. I'd be running to the bathroom after each period, after the bell rings, I'm running to the bathroom. You know what I mean? All right, let's get to it. Let's finish it up. Oh. Okay, so we talked yesterday about, I added pictures too. I thought they were boring without the pictures. I apologize for yesterday, putting you through that slideshow without any pictures. All right, so political participation. So when it comes to federalism, it does increase the opportunities for citizens of the United States to participate in politics. Again, there's a local, state, national level and how people participate. Typically, it's from the bottom up, right? You start low and then work your way up. You get a name for yourself, you get experience. And then as you participate in politics, you start to get that jump, right? And again, if you're experienced and you do a pretty darn good job, then you look for the next highest rank, right? It's just like working up in, let's say, a business. You get that experience, you know how to do your job, and you start feeling comfortable with the business itself. And then maybe you become a supervisor, maybe you become a manager, and maybe, who knows, you might own the business after some time. Kind of the same thing with politics. You get your feet wet at the low levels, right? Maybe you want to run for like a school board, right? You join in the school board, you get a part of it, you get that experience, and you want to maybe move up a little bit more. Right, you might run for mayor of the town, who knows? And then you kind of keep going and going and going and going. And federalism allows for that opportunity. Like I mentioned yesterday, Trump's kind of like the outlier here. He just jumped in as president and had no other political background. So people are like, how did he do it? I don't know. It's kind of unheard of. No one's ever done that, really. So it's interesting. All right, like I mentioned, many opportunities. It's one of those things where federalism preserves political organization from the bottom up. Again, you kind of work your way up through the lower levels to the higher end, maybe to the national government, maybe becoming president, right? And I just talked about this last slide. So, like I said, it just seemed kind of, I mean, really, with Trump's background, I guess kind of that's how he made it to the top. He's been a business leader on entertainment for so long that everybody realized that, yeah, we already know who this guy is. All right, so again, I already talked about that. Politicians. So like I mentioned with bureaucracies, these are organizations within government where you don't have to be elected, right? It's based off of your experience, your knowledge, your background. And when it comes down to it, these elected officials choose you to become a bureaucrat, right? Yeah, you could get ousted, sure, right? But typically, these are like lifelong terms, right? Lifelong careers, right? Where you assume this position and you don't leave it until maybe you get pushed out, right? Impeached from the position, or you resign or retire. So a lot of times these bureaucrats hold on to it for a long time. And people, when it comes to the United States, especially elections and how these positions should not be just ran for all many years, one person having all this power. Some people have a problem with it, right? Some people think that bureaucracies are damaging to what the foundation of America is all about. And where we have elections, where we choose who we want for these positions, right? It's not to be held by one person for the length of time. Again, if that person's very qualified, right? If they're experienced, if they have a lot of knowledge, and I mean, maybe just leave them in. And that's the other argument against it. So yeah, with bureaucracies, um, they do serve a role within our government, sure, but in many cases, people have a problem with it, a gripe with it, because a lot of times they're lifelong positions. They're not elected into the position. Really, the first signs of bureaucracies, I guess, dates back to like Genghis Khan, right? Way back when he was trying to appoint military generals, and he's going to go based off of merit. It's not like they had an election or anything. He chose them, but and they were successful. They had experience. It's not like you're just going to throw in some friend or family member, which that does happen a lot, even still to this day, right? So that's something to think about. Napoleon was also another good example. You guys remember Napoleon? Yeah, he was another good example of just appointing bureaucrats based off of experience, based off knowledge. He wasn't just going to throw his buddies in these positions because, well, that's not a good idea. Then it becomes corrupt. Then it becomes a point where your leadership's starting to boil all around. All right, so other forms of bureaucracies. I mean, obviously, the FBI is a good example, right? These positions. And again, there's a vetting process to it. It's not like they're just letting some Joe Schmo in, right? Again, they have the experience, the knowledge, the background, the schooling for it. So yeah, it's kind of up in the air, right? Bureaucracies, bureaucrats, they get a lot of heat for sure. But there are some examples of it. A lot of people even say just totally get rid of it, right? Totally abolish it from our country, which there's some truth to that too with the foundation for it. All right, so politicians, okay. Here's something interesting that I wanted to make sure you guys know. When it comes to governors and mayors, right, a lot of times they run the state freely how they like. But there's also organizations and meetings that they do attend where they talk and discuss over certain matters, certain issues that they have within their populace. And maybe they have new methods and new policies that help benefit the populace a little bit better. And these organizations are suited and good because it keeps the mayors and governors in line with one another, right? In touch with one another, so that if there is an issue, they can work together. And they might have better ideas that stem from this. In today's world, when it comes to Democrat, Republican, right? Obviously, it's like oil and water. Right, they don't really mix together. So sometimes you don't see these interactions happen often. Sometimes it's communication between states that have a Republican governor, or let's say a Democrat governor. They never talk. They actually might even feud against one another until we see maybe an election. Last year, right around this time, there was a debate with DeSantis of Florida and Newsom from California. And it was really strange because they weren't running for president at the time. Maybe it's one of those things in the future, that might be something. And they had a debate against one another, which was interesting to watch. So I don't know. I mean, that was a way to maybe talk about, hash out certain issues. And that was the famed debate when DeSantis brought out the poop map in San Francisco. You guys know what I'm talking about? No, there's an actual app on your phone in San Francisco that tells you where all the poop is on the streets because there's so much homelessness there. So, DeSantis brought it up and it just looked like a big map of San Fran, but there's poop everywhere. It's like, this is disgusting. Which, he has a point. I mean, that was like the headline of the whole debate against one another to see what state was running better, which is cool to see, but I don't know. Like they're not running for president at the moment. I don't know that probably. So we'll see. All right. So differences amongst the states. Oh, there you go. California and Florida. I put that one in just this morning. So when it comes to economic and political differences, yeah, they face different issues. They have a different market. They have different resources, different materials. Right. Obviously, in California and Florida, when it comes to beachfronts, yeah, they're very similar. Vacation destinations, yeah, they're very similar. They have a lot to offer that people around the country want to visit there, right? When it comes to, fisheries, right? That's important. So when it comes to different materials and products and goods that they are producing, right? A lot of times they do compete against one another. Bless you. Right, again, it's all fair and game, right? But they do compete against one another when it comes to maybe the population. California obviously has the biggest population in the country, but Florida's catching up. They are. Okay, and well, Disney World, Disneyland. I mean, come on. You can see how these states are very similar when it comes to products and goods being established there. Another one when it comes to SpaceX, right? A lot of these space private industries are, you see a lot in California, you see a lot in Florida, right? Silicon Valley's in California. A lot of these new tech advancements and innovations and technology happen in California. But a lot are moving to Florida. A lot are moving to Texas and Tennessee because California has really, really high taxes, right? And a lot of people are actually leaving the state. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Like I mentioned with that debate between Sanders and Newsom, it's interesting to watch. It was something like entertainment for the world of politics. But it just kind of continues that divide between Republicans and Democrats in the country. Immigration, when it comes to other situations like the war on drugs, right, in these states, yeah, they all have very similar issues and concerns. And maybe depending on the political party, they treat things differently, especially with immigration. California is very open borders. Florida, no, not at all. COVID-19, right, when it came to those policies, Florida didn't really shut down anything, right? They didn't have any really mandates on the people. They thought it was draconian, meaning extreme. In California, they had very strict policies during COVID-19. So, yeah. All right, so other differences, okay, I just talked about all this within the other slide, but it is important to know that when people do cross state boundaries, right, they might be joining into a different political system. They might be joining into a different political ideology that they maybe aren't kind to or happy with. So that's something to think about, right? So when you think about Texas, California, yeah, as a good example here, Texas is usually deeply red, Republican. California, blue for sure. And that hasn't really changed in the past few election cycles. Like I said, Florida's getting up there too now, becoming a very red state. Now, again, they just had an election for a Senate seat. Where another Republican candidate won, so same red in Senate. All right, so direction of federalism. So when it comes to the beginning of our country, there's been a debate on how the country should divide government powers, right? The way they have it set up, again, states' rights, national position. It is important to know that there is sections, layers of government, right? So you got that local, state, and national. And when it comes to the Democrats, they believe that it should be more of a top-down approach. So the national government will put out a policy or law and it trickles down to the states. Right? Whatever national government says goes. Right. And then you have the states where they're like, no, right? Every population within these states are different. Right? They have different viewpoints. And the Republicans believe that local governments can shape the lives of people in their community better than what the national government can do. It's not like it's like one of those things, like a puzzle piece, right? Not every piece fits in the same slot. That's exactly right, right? And with the local governments, the state governments, they can answer the needs and desires of their people a lot better than someone, let's say, from the national government. They have a better idea, better understanding of the issues that they face in their everyday life. Does that make sense? Okay. So, yeah. Republicans favor state rights, Democrats for the nationalist position. And that's what it's been, obviously, for a long time. You can probably think of, well, the 1960s or so, right? Obviously with Governor Walsh, how he started off this chapter, really. That's when maybe you can say the Democrats for more states' rights in the southern states, right? When you think about the civil rights and all. Yeah, people talk about it switching political affiliations and political ideology. And I mean, there's truth to it, but there's also contradictions. There's a lot of debate around that idea that politics kind of shift over time. Which, yeah, you can definitely say they lean either one way or the other. I mean, you look at JFK, for instance. I mean, he'd be a Republican in today's world, right? Because of what's that? Abraham Lincoln. Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think of Bill Clinton even. Bill Clinton would probably be considered uh, more of a moderate Republican, which, yeah, that line kind of shifts and moves down the line. All right, so gerrymandering, like I mentioned, this is that weird phenomenon within politics where you start to see different, districts drawn out based on what party's in charge when this census data comes out. Again, it's every 10 years, but it takes to the second year after that. So typically it's about 12 years then when you actually see it in motion, where you actually see the districts redrawn. So in 2030, we'll see the census data come out. 2032 election, we'll see the redistricting. So here's just a good example how to steal an election. I guess, but it's kind of true, right? So when it comes to gerrymandering, you can see how this even divide, right? So if you're a Democrat, you'd like to see a blue wins 5 districts. You just you lump the population together in order to receive a majority every single time, right? And you'll get 5 districts and up. All right, what about when it comes to red? Right here, when it comes to Republican Party, let's just say for this example, they can redistrict it to make it seem like, well, the Republicans would have the advantage. Doesn't that one seem a little weird and strange? Yeah, but technically, in this district, you'll have 3 red and 2 blue. All right, here's just an example that you saw, uh, you know, in this map here with North Carolina and Republican Congress, gerrymandering could swing votes here, go like that. And then in the next cycle, right, with the redistricting, you can see that the Democratic Party can reshape things in order to see the maximum benefit for their populace. So that they get the majority of votes rather than Republicans. And then here would be more of a nonpartisan, here would be more of an equal way of doing it. Right, so you can have an equal way, boom, blue and red, and then the swing districts would just depend. Maybe they're leaning more Republican, maybe they're leaning more Democratic. And those swing districts would determine the state in a national election. Though it's strange, it's weird, I know, but it's kind of the cheat code in politics, right? Where people are like, we should get rid of it. Well, maybe, but both political parties take advantage of it. Same thing with, like I said, filibustering. All right, any questions? You guys good? All right. So I'm going to post your study guide, your vocab. And I'll have your test out on Monday. Test is going to be Monday. So tomorrow we'll do a review. The rest of the time, guys, please work on your study guide. Your vocab's done. You can just